Welcome to Scriptural Snapshot, brought to you by Living Faith Ministries in Kaiser, West Virginia, where we bring the living Word of God into your life. I'm Pastor Gordon Brubaker. We're studying about a prepared place out of John chapter 14, and we're in the conversation now that Philip is having with Jesus. And Philip says to Jesus, "Show us the Father." And Jesus says, "Have I been with you so long and you don't know who I am?" See, they're getting ready to come to a final examination, as I call it, just a final test to really test their faith. And it's not so much to test their faith, but they are believing God to the best of their ability. They're believing Jesus with what he says to the best of what they know, but they don't know everything yet. And we said yesterday that Jesus has been proving himself to them, that greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world, that the Father can overcome even death itself, and yet the disciples still don't understand because they can't grasp what Jesus just told them in John chapter 13 about that he's going to die and be crucified and be in the grave for 3 days and then rise from the dead. They can't grasp that. How can God die if Jesus is really God? This is a question many scholars have struggled with, and they've really not come up with the right answer for the most part, simply because they don't believe in God. They're trying to live by form and function, but they don't have revelation of who God is. Oh my, that's deep. So we find we're jumping ahead to John chapter 16, and where the disciples say, "Well, now Jesus, you're speaking plainly to us." When he says, "I came from the Father, I'm going to go back to the Father," and they say, "Oh, now you're speaking clearly. Now we understand. You're not using a figure of speech. Now we are sure that you do know all things and have no need that anyone should question you by this. We believe that you came forth from God." And in John chapter 16:31, right after they again acknowledge their faith in God, Jesus says, "Do you now believe? Indeed, the hour is coming, yes, has now come, that you will be scattered, each to his own, and will leave me alone. And yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. These things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." This is awesome. Jesus, I love this. I have a little bit of a sarcastic side to me from time to time. And I can just hear Jesus say, "Oh, you believe now. Because I told you I came from God, because I told you I'm going back to God. Now you believe after 3 years. Now you believe you're finally coming to this place of faith." And then he shocks them. He says, "The hour is coming. It's even right now where you will be scattered to your own. And you're going to abandon me, you're going to leave me alone, but I am not alone because the Father is with me and he will never forsake me. He will never leave me." He says, "In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." This is, man, this is so much packed into this. This is the new birth. This is salvation. This is being born again. This is the influx of the Father into us and into our lives. This is the power of God at work, that in the world, you, the disciples, you're going to have tribulation, but be of good cheer because I've overcome the world. All the things that you are suffering and going to suffer in the next 3 days, I have already dealt with and I have defeated it. Jesus knows and trusts in the Father that he will be raised from the dead. The disciples are going to spend 3 days wondering what happened when Jesus gets killed, when Jesus dies, when Jesus is put in the grave. They're going to wonder what in this world is going on, but it's because they're worldly minded. They still haven't grasped what Jesus is trying to tell them. So again, we find in John chapter 16, Jesus is warning them of what is about to come. Again, the conversation started with Peter asking, "Where are you going?" And Peter swears that he will fight for Jesus and even lay down his life for Jesus. "Oh, Jesus, I will never abandon you. I will always be with you." Well, Peter's faith and determination is real. I'm not trying to make fun of him because we find ourselves often in the exact same spot. His faith, his commitment is real, and Jesus knows this, but Peter's faith is still young. Now listen to this. Their faith in God's faithfulness can only be revealed by the resurrection of Jesus from the dead. Their faith in God's faithfulness can only be revealed by the resurrection of Jesus from the dead. We say, well, God is faithful. Yes, He is. God is faithful to perform His word. Yes, He is. You say, but how do we know that? The evidence is Jesus being raised from the dead. That's the evidence. See, the disciples have that missing piece yet. They're trying to believe for something that hasn't happened yet, but they don't understand that Jesus, in the world you will have tribulation, but Jesus said, I have overcome the world. I've already defeated this. This is already a done thing as far as Jesus is concerned, but the disciples are still learning. They're still growing. They're still grasping at this level of faith that Jesus is walking in. I'm Pastor Gordon Brubaker. God bless you.